been sitting much too long, much too long. Welcome, 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 welcome to Truth, a radio program designed with you in mind, a program whose sole purpose is to empower you, our listeners, for information leads to knowledge, and knowledge is power. And as always, I want to empower you to take control of your life, those things that impact you, your family, and your community. And as always, I want you to go to the website at www.gwen-truth.com so you can access all of those resource listings that will give you the information, which is the power that you need to be what? All powerful. All powerful. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to Truth. I'm Gwen Azama-Edwards, former City Commissioner, retired City Clerk, City of Daytona Beach, President and CEO of AE Enterprises, Inc., a consulting firm on politics and ethics. Oh, we have a great guest. Big John's already let it out of the bag. What can I say? Joyce Shanahan, who is the City Manager for the City of Ormond Beach, and we've got some great stuff that we're going to share with you tonight. But before that, I want to do a shout out. I want to do a shout out to several people, couple of groups, and I do want you to go to the website though so you can chime in on this query, and this is the last time I'm going to have it on, where I'm asking you guys if you believe that the age for signing up for Medicare should remain at 65 or should it be increased to 67. Go there so you can let me know, okay? And in terms of the shout out, I want to do a shout out for my cousin, my first cousin, and his family, James Taylor, who worked for the Department of Transportation for many, many, many years. He retired from there. His wife also worked there as well and retired. But he passed on Tuesday. And we just want to do a shout out for the family to let them know that they're in our prayers and how much we love them. And that we're there for his wife Joyce, and we're there for the family. We grew up together, James and my sisters and myself, and he was like the brother. His sister, Lovell, died much earlier. She died many years ago in her 40s. James, the only other remaining sibling, to my aunt Doris, whose husband, my Uncle Frank, has already passed. But, I know people are passing all the time, but it's difficult when it's close to you. It's difficult when it's close to you. So shout out to them with love, And the memories will linger with us, long after they're gone, and we know that's the way it works. And we just thank God for the memory and the opportunity of knowing them. And knowing him and growing up with him. Both he and his sister, they are now together in glory. I want to do a shout out too for the Daytona Beach Rotary West Club. I had an opportunity today to spend some time with the young people at Campbell Middle School. And I did 3 sessions, 40 minutes each, as did several other volunteers. We had about 5 groups going at the same time, or sessions going at the same time. And, we had young people to come to our sessions. My session was on how to be assertive. And someone said, that's kind of like an oxymoron to talk about being assertive to, middle school kids. But we were talking being assertive as opposed to, being more contrary than that, right? Being negative or aggressive, just teaching them the right way, the proper way, the way that really will help them in life. And that went over very, very well. So, very, very pleased. Yes?
Would you hit that blue button? Can you reach it? Yeah. Thank you.
Very, very pleased with the sessions that went on today. And again, many thanks to Daytona Beach Rotary West for putting on this kind of a youth leadership activity. And they do this, they've been doing it, I'm told, since either 2006 or 2007. And that means hundreds of young people that they have helped at Campbell Middle. And so shout out to them, shout out to all of the participants, all of the keynote speakers, all the individuals in our community who really came out and helped and worked with them to really do something that will help the young people in the short term and in the long term. So shout out to everybody all around. And shout out to all of you who are also out there helping and working with our young people, because they need to know that others care. They need to know that they're important. They need to know that it's important for them to care about being their best and doing their best. So shout out, shout out, shout out. Now, to my guest, Joyce Shanahan. And I have to say, Joyce, that I met you for the first time because I didn't, not being from Ormond Beach, I didn't go to any of the meetings where they brought in the applicants as they do now for who are candidates for an office. So I didn't go to any of that. So I got to meet you for the one of the first times, I think, when you came to Rotary, actually. And someone brought you as a guest, and Joyce is a member of the Daytona Beach Rotary Club, and she was a Rotary member in the city where she came from before, coming to our area. And actively involved, I mean, you have actually won awards for being the City Manager of the Year, right? Was that VCOG, or was that the state, or both?
I was recognized by VCOG 2 separate years, and I was recognized as a finalist by the state 2 separate years.
And I told her, I'm going to say it on the air. I don't have any problem saying it. So I said it to her. I whispered it to her when I was running for mayor once. I said it, when I become mayor, you're going to become our city manager at Daytona Beach. Oh, that would have been a great coup. But but still, people love you in Ormond Beach. You just have a way about you. I'm not trying to make, because she's one of those people who loves being behind the scenes. And I've learned that about you, and you don't like the accolades and stuff, but I just have to say that you are one of those people who's very much beloved in your community. I love what you do in walking with the manager. I know you've been doing that since you've been a city manager. If you would just take a few minutes and just share with our listeners a little bit about yourself for those who aren't that aware, or, maybe they remember back when, but it's maybe been a while. How long have you been the manager of Ormond Beach now? Where were you manager in the position before? And, just share a little bit about yourself. And then we're going to talk about some accomplishments you're very proud of.
Thank you, Ms. Gwen. I'm pleased to be here today, so I appreciate the opportunity for that. I have been the manager. It's hard to believe it'll be 4 years tomorrow.
Wow.
February, I became the manager in Ormond Beach, so I don't know where the time has gone, but it seems like just yesterday. Before coming to Ormond, I was in the Panhandle. I was in Fort Walton Beach for 12 years, 6 of those as manager, and prior to that, I was the council-appointed finance director for 6 years. So I love the Panhandle, but the Atlantic beaches are just as nice as the Gulf Coast beaches. I did my undergraduate work at the University of North Carolina at Greensboro, and I have a master's in public administration from the University of Pittsburgh. So that's a little bit about my background. I grew up in Pittsburgh. All my family still lives there, and so I try to visit as often as I can. Let's see, some things that we're really proud about happening in Ormond. Right now, we're finishing up the Andy Romano Beachfront Park. That's right across from Olive Garden and Dimitri's and Bonefish. The really interesting thing about that beachfront park, not only is it a collaboration between the city and the county, but also our taxpayers voted to tax themselves to create that beachfront park.
That says a lot.
It really does, and we're fixing for a groundbreaking on February 23rd, so we're really excited about that. The contractor, Sabungi Incorporated, is working feverishly to finish that up, so we can hardly wait for that to be completed.
And he's a great contractor too. I've just watched him over the years with different things that he has built, and he does a quality job. I just have to say that, he really does.
I had a walk through the park last week, and I will tell you, it was breathtakingly beautiful. I couldn't believe it, so I'm really excited. We can hardly wait for it to open, and I hope everybody in the area will be equally proud about that. Some of you all have been inconvenienced by some of our construction on Hand Avenue. You may remember the storms in 2009. We had about 38 inches of rain in about 7 days. And for those of you that don't realize, between Nova Road and US 1, it's sort of like a bowl. All the way from Ormond Beach to South Daytona, that area really doesn't drain very well. And we had about 150 homes that were flooded during that period of time. And we needed to make some drainage improvements. And we received upwards of $3 million in federal FEMA grant money. And so right now we're undertaking the drainage improvements along Hand Avenue. At the City Commission meeting coming up on Tuesday, we're going to discuss the bids for interconnecting the lakes at Central Park, which will also help us manage the water in that area. So we're really excited about that project. I know it's inconvenient for the people that live there, but I would guess we're about halfway through. We'll probably finish sometime in late September, early October. But the end result, we hope, will be a great improvement in the flooding in that area. We also are doing some renovations to our handball courts out at the Nova Recreation Center, putting in brand new courts there. Folks are really excited about that. We've recently made upgrades to our skate park there, so we're excited about that. Other planned improvements we have are the John Anderson Drive. It was a big deal about a year ago about what we're going to do there, and I think the commission reached a wonderful compromise. We're going to resurface that roadway and make the spot drainage improvements, and that will probably begin sometime in early summer. Halifax Road, another area folks travel a lot, North Halifax, north of Granada. If you're traveling on that now, it's a little inconvenient because we're milling that and we're going to resurface that, adding a bike lane. What takes the greatest amount of time is raising the manhole covers, because you have to raise those before you repave, because if you repave, then they're down below and you can't get access to them. So that takes the greatest amount of time, and so that's what we're doing right now. The paving part is the quick part.
Now, which of those, or out of those in the area they call the loop?
No, most of that is not, because the loop is mostly in unincorporated village.
Oh, okay.
So John Anderson Drive, the very end of it is the very end of the loop. Coming to the bridge, that very final part there.
All right.
Folks don't really ride Halifax so much for if you're riding the loop, but it's a great alternative bike path, because there'll be a designated bike lane there, which will make a lot safer bicycling.
Wonderful.
So,
Wonderful.
yeah.
What about your downtown area? I saw where you're doing you have some good stuff planned for that, and
Thank you for asking. Pardon our progress there. That has been a 4-year-long project working with the Florida Department of Transportation. They were planning on resurfacing that road about a year and a half ago, but when they brought that to mind, we had some ideas to enhance that roadway. We're putting in a median. We have upwards of a $300,000 grant from the Florida Department of Transportation for trees and landscaping in the median. We're going to be undergrounding utilities. We just let the bid for that. So that should happen once the transportation improvements are completed. So we expect that that'll begin sometime in late September and finish hopefully by the end of the year. For those of you that have seen the South Daytona US 1, really is remarkable.
awesome.
We hope to have an equally spectacular view when we're done. So many people, Ormond Beach Main Street, the City Commission, my staff, the Florida Department of Transportation, all work together in partnership to make that happen. So we're really excited about that. It's really bumpy with the individual crosswalks because they're the pavers. so you need to be careful when you travel on that roadway, but I think you'll be very pleased with the outcome of that.
In reading about that in the paper, I noticed where businesses that were along that Granada area were looking forward to it, and they weren't complaining like, oh, they're going to have to shut this down and shut that down, and then I'm going to lose money or whatever. But they were saying, and they were very positive, oh no, this is something that's going to help the area. We look forward to that, and we're all for it.
Well, and that's in large part due to the City Commission and the Ormond Beach Main Street. They work collectively with those groups before we even started the project.
Oh, wonderful.
And the great thing is that we'll be able to maintain on-street parking as well. I think in the whole course from the bridge to Washington Street, we might lose 4 spaces. But so we'll maintain on-street parking, we'll be able to have a median, we'll have what we call streetscape, which are benches and trash cans, and then landscaping that's appropriate for the area. So yes, the merchants are on board. Oftentimes when you start talking about putting a median in, people will complain, well, they can't turn left or right. We've had none of that, so the merchants have been really very supportive, and we're really excited about that.
That is really awesome. And I can recall years ago with the city of Ormond Beach when the new building, which has now been there probably forever, your new city hall, and then having the library right next to it, and then you guys starting to develop across the street from that, where you actually have several events, and you have actually a Veterans Memorial there as well, I believe, right?
We do.
Yes. Has that proven to be a really great connector for bringing people together, that area?
It really is. I think a library is central to a downtown. People thought with the digital age coming and all these books on Kindle that nobody goes to the library. Well, I can attest firsthand that there are people at the library all the time. Across the street we have Casson Park, we have you can do fishing off the pier. If you just walk over the bridge, you can go to the historical site at the McDonald House. They have a little place that you can get information there. And then certainly is the Rockefeller Gardens that we redid 3 years ago, that opened. And the actual Rockefeller House, the casements, we spent about $1 million improving the roof, the air conditioning, repainting that area. And then Fortunato Park is across the street, and on the other side, the west side, northwest side of the bridge is Bailey River Bridge, which is one of the oldest churches in our area. It's been moved a couple of times. So the city has all 4 corners of the bridge, and it really makes for a wonderful entrance to our downtown, and I think leads to a very walkable community and a place where people generally want to migrate and get together.
Yes, and the area, and I've just seen this in crossing the bridge, the area that's across from, which would be west, yes, I think west, north, west, no, west, it would be west, of Rockefeller, the Rockefeller, is it mansion or?
We call it the casements, but
Okay.
yes.
Yes. That area, the development of that, did someone just up and decide, we probably need more area for people to get together? And did someone then plan the design of that? Because that in itself to me is kind of spectacular, the way that whole thing is set up.
Well, thank you for that. It used to be a big mud pit, and anytime it rained, you couldn't have any kind of function there because you couldn't rely upon the ground. The groundwater was real high there, so working with city staff, and I don't remember who the architect of record was on that particular project, but they designed it to provide plenty of drainage. They wanted to connect it to Fortunato Park so you can walk under the bridge there. They also wanted to provide plenty of grass area so that if you wanted to have movies like we do Friday nights. Now on Friday night, February 1st, we have the first Friday of every month, we have an outdoor movie free of charge there. It's Dr. Seuss's The Lorax, so we'll have that this Friday. There's also a stage that's built up, already exists there, so we have many weddings there.
Oh, wow.
On the other side of the stage is a paddle wheel and a pond, lots of pictures, prom pictures are taken there. At the far end, there's actually sort of a mini amphitheater set up where there's steps where people can sit during events and whatnot. With the Native American Festival that just took place last weekend, it was just packed to the gills with people. And so it's really become a event venue for our community. And it's nothing greater than when you're coming over the bridge and you see it filled with tents and people. Everybody just wants to stop by.
And it's fabulous. And let me ask you, do you charge your residents to use facilities like that, or
Yes.
how do you deal with the fee structure of something like that?
There are certain fees for events that the city puts on. Sometimes there are fees and sometimes there aren't. But if you wanted to have your wedding there, there's a nominal fee. I don't think it's extraordinary. There's a whole schedule for that. They can contact the Leisure Services Department for that. But if you're just walking around there, there's no fee. If you wanted to have an impromptu picnic with your family, and there wasn't anything going on, you can take a blanket and just sit there and relax. Many times I see people walking their dogs or having a picnic lunch out there on a nice day. So it's free to the public to use, but if you want to reserve it specifically for an event just for you or your family, then you need to contact Leisure Services about that.
So I like that. I think that's really important that in what you're doing, that you have events that there's some where there's a nominal fee, there are others that are free. And you see your facilities and your services as something that you provide for your residents, because you like the fact that people live there and you want them to feel special and to feel that you guys actually do appreciate them.
Well, and I believe those special events are the heartbeat of our community. They bring people to our downtown. They're a gathering point for people. In this day and age, too many folks don't know their neighbors. We're too busy with our lives to talk to people. But when you have events like that, you see your neighbor or you see someone from church that you haven't seen for a while. So I think it's a great opportunity to gather and be friendly in a social setting. In what better vista to look out over, the Halifax River, or sit and look at a historic house that John D. Rockefeller built when he came here. So, we're just very lucky.
Yes, and your residents are very fortunate as well. When you take walks with residents, and do you find very many people interested in taking the walks, or?
It's really interesting. It really depends kind of what's happening at that. We do it once a month, and tomorrow we have Walking with the Manager. It'll be, generally we start at the casements across at Rockefeller Garden. I've had as many as 36 people.
Wow.
That's when we went to the airport one time. And I've had as few as 2 or 3. Interestingly enough, right after the rains in 2009, it was a rainy day, and only one person showed up. And she said, well, I really wanted to talk to you about drainage on John Anderson. And so it was a great opportunity.
Yes.
I walked over to her house from the basements. I could see what her drainage issue was. And so that's the wonderful thing about the Walking with the Manager. It's a low stress environment. You don't have to worry about coming to the commission meeting to talk to somebody. You can ask us any question, me. I often will bring a department head. If there's something specific going on, like tomorrow, we're going to have the planning director there, and we're going to walk the downtown corridor to talk about the new improvements that are going to be happening there. So I suspect we'll have a big turnout for that because people are curious about that. It's a good opportunity to get a little exercise, get out in the fresh air, and really kind of an informal setting to talk with the people in our community about their concerns.
Now, let me ask you, what is your philosophy? Because I know different city managers have a different philosophy in terms of their working relationship with their commission or their council. And, some feel that, they basically provide them with what they want and then kind of take a back seat and just follow their directions. Others want to be much more direct, much more involved, and want to actually pretty much navigate kind of what's done and the direction they go in their life. What's your basic philosophy?
Well, my basic philosophy is the commission sets the policy and direction for the community. They're the elected officials. Our residents elected them to set the direction, mission, and vision of the city. And I'm the CEO, and I carry out that vision. That is my role. I am blessed with a wonderful commission that works very well together, that is business-minded and employee-sensitive. That's a balancing act sometimes. We have limited resources, but they're very respectful of staff. They want and solicit our opinion, but ultimately they are the elected officials and they make that decision. So I believe that they are the policymakers, and I implement what it is that they feel our community needs.
Do you ever interject your opinions, or do you just provide it if you're asked? Or does it vary?
It does vary. If they don't have all the information at the time they're making a decision, I will remind them that, remember that this isn't budgeted, or, we have to be careful because we might be setting a precedent, doing new things. So it does vary, but they are gracious enough to give me latitude, and I wouldn't provide it if it was unsolicited, but I try to give them guidance so that we're not making a mistake.
Okay. Now, pensions have been in the news. There was an article by the News Journal talking about cities need help to get ahead of the looming pension costs. I mean, we've been talking about that for years and years, especially as it relates to police and fire pensions. And there was, I believe, a study that was done just 2, maybe 3 years ago, where actually pension funds were graded, and cities got A's or B's and D's and the like. And I believe Port Orange, in our immediate area, Port Orange was the city that got the lowest grade, that being, I believe, a D. Daytona Beach got a B. I believe maybe Ormond Beach could have gotten a C or somewhere in there. But there are a lot of citizens that hear a lot about the pensions and how, it's an unfunded and we really don't have enough money to cover this, that, or the other. But I don't think in many ways that, based on a lot of the information that comes out, that the average person really and truly does not understand what it is that we're talking about, why we're in many of the cities the shape that we're in. And many of them don't understand that this isn't just a local problem. It really is a nationwide problem, because we have police and fire and other employees, but the other employees don't really seem to, in terms of the pensions, take as much of a hit in terms of impacting municipalities and the like as do police and fire pensions. So if you could help to educate our listeners in terms of the pensions, there's a defined pension. I know there's a
Defined benefit and defined contribution.
Yes, absolutely. That's where I was going. And which is it that we have, and the state has, and the differences between those, and then what are the problems that we're experiencing now? What needs to change to kind of stop that train wreck that we're all going to face at some point in time? And I know this is something that you pulled together. You made presentations, and I heard it was your presentation that I heard presented to a chamber group that it really impressed me, because you present the information in such a way that I think the average person can understand it and understand the issue as it really stands.
Well, thank you. I'm going to do a little basic background.
Wonderful.
First, if we can.
Yes.
Essentially, there are 3 components, or there should be 3 components to an employee's personal retirement plan. There should be their personal savings, Social Security if they're eligible, and the employer pension plan. And, you know, in the past, it was all three of those components that made up an individual's retirement plan. Over time, it seems as if for cities, the city retirement plan has grown to be a larger part of, or an expected to be 100% of an employee's retirement plan. And that really just cannot be. It really is those three components. We really have to have personal savings if we're eligible for Social Security. Now, there are some people that work in the federal government that have their own retirement plan, and they're not gonna have that. So, that's really the basic start. We have something called a defined benefit plan, and what that means is that if you work for a city, like City of Ormond Beach, you would have a defined benefit plan. So you would retire and you would know that you're gonna get $850 a month every month until you passed away as your retirement benefit. That's a defined benefit. Defined contribution plans are plans where the city or your employer matches a portion of what you would put in. Let's say the city puts in 3%, you would put in 3% of your wage, and you have a total of 6%, and you have the freedom to invest that as you would like. If you want to invest it all in stocks, if you want to do stocks and bonds, you want to put a little bit in CDs, you can do that. But at the end, your retirement is going to be dependent upon your investment choices. And there's no guarantee. If the market goes down, your pension retirement goes down. With a defined benefit plan, it doesn't matter what the market does, you're guaranteed that flat $850 a month. And that's really where the greatest problem has come in for defined benefit plans. The cities take all the risk of the market going down. In the late 90s and the early 2000s, the stock market was doing very well, the real estate market was doing well, and so pension plans made lots of money in interest earnings. And so many cities throughout Florida and across the nation really had to contribute very little to the pension plans as a result of that. And so in hindsight, we would say, you know, we should always be contributing something because we know. I will tell you that in my former life, my other job during that time, we had plans that were greater than 100% funded. But when also during that time, the unionized employees said, well, you don't have to make any contributions. We would like you to increase our benefits. And so that's what happened. A lot of those benefits were increased. The reason why you don't hear much talk about general employees or just, you know, like the city clerks or those types of workers, planners, folks that work in the finance department, is because their benefit structure is really much less than police and fire. Firefighter, if he starts at 19 and works 20 years, he can retire at 39 with full benefits. And that means that he can start collecting his retirement at age 39 and then go and do another job. If you're a general worker for the city, you have to have a magic number of 85, meaning you have to have 50 years of age and 35 years of service, or some combination of years of service and age to get a benefit. So they're not retiring at age 39. If we have folks retiring at earlier ages, logic tells you that I'm paying their pension benefit for a longer period of time. So that's why you see those costs for those plans being so much more, because those folks get to retire at a younger age and are collecting for a longer period of time. So that's kind of the fundamental issue. Now, in Ormond, our pension responsibility for the fiscal year that we just completed is about $4 million. We have to make a $4 million contribution to the police, fire, and general pension plan. That's expected to increase by 36% in 2013. If the market improves, hopefully that'll be a little bit less, but that's part of the issue. Now, when you hear people talk about unfunded liabilities, people don't really know what that means.
No.
What that really means, it's sort of like the mortgage on your house, that each pile of money that we have for each individual employee, that all adds up. And let's say that employee, there's a person that assumes how long people are going to live. They're called mortality tables. Actuaries prepare those. And they determine if you're this age, given the way the world is going, that you're going to live to X amount of age. So they calculate how much it's going to take to fund your pension from your current age to that termination. And so that's like the life of the mortgage on your house. So it's not when you buy your house for $200,000, it's when you buy your house and you pay the interest, and at the end of the 20 years it costs you $325,000. So that's really what that unfunded liability is. It's the value of the pension benefit plus the future benefit that we have to pay for the life of that employee. Our unfunded costs, meaning the amount that we haven't paid for, has increased 100% in 5 years. It has grown dramatically. It's grown from about $20 million for all 3 plans to not quite $40 million.
Wow.
And that's not sustainable. And that's the thing that that we've been working hard to try to resolve. Our funded ratios, meaning how much we funded them, which is that A, B, C grade B, C, has been going down. You know, no surprise there. I believe we had a C, D, F grade on our pension plans, respectively. So, you know, the thing that is most difficult is we have collective bargaining units for police officers, firefighters, and our general employees. And we cannot unilaterally change these pension benefits. I'm very pleased to say that we have been able to get our police officers and general employees to the table, and we've made significant changes in those pension plans. Beginning in January of this year, all new hires in the city in the general employee category, which is our largest category, they will all be in a defined contribution plan. So that means that the city will provide a 6% of their salary and put it in a fund, and they'll match that. And they can match up to 6%. They don't have to match the whole 6%. And they can invest that as they see fit. Now, we hold that money until they retire, but they get to invest that, and they make their own investment decisions. That will save the city, in the long run, about 25% of payroll for every general employee. That'll be a significant savings. In the short run, it'll cost us a little bit more money because we have 2 plans that we're funding. But that is it's a significant change. Defined contributions are also 401ks. People know them under those names. So, you know, we're very pleased to have worked with our general employees to work out those changes. With our police officers, we're a little more constrained by state law what we can do. We would have liked to have moved to a defined contribution for new hires for the police plan. But the Division of Retirement of the state says I cannot have a defined benefit plan for existing hires and a defined contribution plan for new hires. They have to have the same type of plan. We get money from the state for our police and fire pension plans, and that comes from a tax the state assesses on all of your insurance products, your house insurance, your auto insurance. That money, the insurance company collects from our residents, and they send it to the state. The state puts it in a pool and gives it back to those local governments that have local police and fire plans. We get about $700,000 a year from that. If we decided that we didn't want that money anymore and we wanted to have our own 2 plans, we could do that. but our residents would still be taxed, and that money would go to somebody else. So it's a little frustrating, but I will tell you, the legislature is really, all the things that I've been reading, they're really amenable to making changes to those issues moving forward. We're working hard to tell the story of local governments and why it's important to give us the flexibility to negotiate with our unions, because our unions are willing to make changes. You can see with the police, our police officers, even though we can't change from a defined benefit to a defined contribution, they agreed for a lower multiplier for new hires. With the defined benefit plan, you have your years of service times this multiplier and times your annual salary, which equals your benefit. So if you have a multiplier of 3.3%, that's a lot better than 2.75%. Our police officers have a
better for the employee, but not necessarily for the city.
Not for the city, but it's great for the employee. Well, our new hires in police will be at 2.75, down from 3.3%. So initially, we'll save $60,000 annually from just that alone per each new hire. So we're excited over the life of their.
Right.
So we're excited about that. We're hopeful that as changes come about at the state level, we'll be given additional flexibility to make those necessary changes to the police and fire plans. Now, our fire contract wasn't up yet, so we haven't been to the table. We're at the table now negotiating with them.
Let me say very quickly, you're listening to Truth with Gwen Azama-Edwards. My guest, of course, is Joyce Shanahan, who is the city manager for the city of Ormond Beach. This is WLE 1380 AM on your radio dial in Ormond Beach, Florida. It's also GoliathRadio.com. It's also Big 1380 AM. So, and we're talking about pensions that have been in the news so much, and that will continue to be in the news until some kind of change is put into place that will develop or come up with a way of providing pensions to our employees that are sustainable. And with what you shared then, Joyce, what you're saying is that in working with, and when it's a union contract, you do have to, you can't just unilaterally, you can't just by yourself with the city government saying this is what's going to happen and not have those at the bargaining table agree with you. It has to be a joint agreement, or you end up going into, going to court or going to someone who will actually help to make that decision for you. But what you want to do is honor what has been put in place for those who are currently in the plan, and then for all new hires, they're the ones then who will see the change in terms of the benefit package.
Well, that's correct. It's important in Florida. People are vested in the benefits that they've earned to date. So I could conceivably change it moving forward for an existing person, but I couldn't go back retroactively and change it for the years of service from the day they were hired. So we cannot do that. And the commission has, as you said, worked hard to get an agreement with the unions. Let's at least look going forward. If we can make those decisions, and that's a little bit easier. You had asked earlier about do all cities have these types of plans? Well, there are over 400 cities in the state of Florida. 185 of them participate in what is called the Florida Retirement System. That is operated by the state, and the benefits and contribution amounts are determined by the state. And there was a recent legislation by the state to charge all employees 3%. Prior to that time, the employees contributed nothing. There are 206 cities in the state that have their own pension plans, and that's what Ormond Beach has, Port Orange, Daytona Beach, New Smyrna Beach has a combination, DeLand has its own plans. So they're different for every local government, but there are some communities around here that participate in the state plan. Most all counties participate in the state plan. There was some talk of trying to move to the state plan for existing employees, but what do you do about what they've earned to date? And that's the real, we would have to make a big check to the state for their existing benefits, and it's just not tenable at this time.
And I've been around, I was with state government back starting in the 70s, and when I actually started with state government, which was in 71, I have a small amount of money that I contributed toward retirement, toward the pension, which stands out there. But prior to then, employees actually did contribute. They did contribute to the plan. You paid a certain amount, and state government paid a certain amount. So it's not unheard of, and it is something that did occur before. I do recall that Representative Dwayne Taylor said that the reason they changed from that, this is his comment in studying the issue, is that what happened was that the employees then, because they contributed, they then, as you've said, they then own the money and they can take it out, and then you have nothing left in there to help with others. So for them, they felt it was a wise move. But they did used to do that. Are you finding, you said you've not yet, or you're just starting to get with fire, the fire department workers and the like. Do you find that people, and we started off saying this, that really residents, citizens don't seem to really understand. They hear about all this fuss and bother about pensions and the like, but they don't understand that the dollars that you're talking about are really dollars that are coming from them.
Yeah, I think pension is really a complicated issue, and we love our police officers and firefighters. They help us out in our time of need, and nobody wants to take anything away from anybody, including me. But we have to do it so that it's sustainable. And if my pension contribution is going to increase 33% from $4 million, that's less money I have to provide other services, parks and recreation, police and fire protection, street cleaning, road paving, and the like. So there's only a finite pool of money that we have, and that's where the difficult decision making comes in. I will tell you that in Ormond we've been fortunate that we've planned ahead for some of these issues. In the mid-2000s, we started putting money away for capital projects and repair and replacement fund, and not using those growth and revenue dollars. So we were living off of our little of money we earned in 2005 for operating. We have reduced our workforce by 15% over the last 4 years, which is significant for, we were upwards of more than 400 people. We're down to a little less than 350. We've cut significant dollars out of our budget. And that's why we've been able to sustain as long as we've had. We've been in a good financial position. There are other communities that are not as fortunate as we are. And they're really forced to make really difficult decisions about laying off or firing employees, about cutting benefits drastically because they can't continue to fund those.
But if things continue for your city and for other cities, and they really don't take a proactive stance in terms of dealing with the issue, as you said, you started putting some dollars away, but eventually if this were allowed to continue to grow and grow and grow, there'd be no way that you could not only sustain it, but there'd be no way that you could then start, pulling money from here to pay for that, taking from Peter to pay for Paul and the like. There'd be nothing in Peter to pay for Paul.
The current benefit plans as they stand are not sustainable going forward, and that's why we've had to go to the table with our unions and really talk turkey and say, this is what it is, and I'm pleased to say that our unions have responded well.
And, listeners need to hear that and be aware of the fact that there are individuals who are, with the police union, with the fire union, with the general employee unions, who are willing, and they don't want to, because they love the cities as well. And they don't want to see the residents or see the city suffer as a result of something that, you know, even though it could benefit them greatly, but they don't want to see their benefit become like a noose or you know, a chain around the neck of the city overall, especially if they live there and if it's their you know, it's their community as well, so it's their children, their grandchildren and the like who also have to pay the price, you know, bite the bullet now and in the future.
Yeah, they don't want to be a burden either. I mean, like I said, I'm very pleased that they've been willing to come to the table. Have we solved all the issues? Absolutely not. We've got a long way to go. But this is a starting point, and we can build on that going forward.
And it's important to look at the legislation. I got word of legislation of a bill that is being introduced, and the Florida Legal Cities is against that bill. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but they're against it because they're saying that what it will do is actually mandate that the cities come up with the money for all of the unfunded dollars, so that you have that there and you have it set aside and you've always got that money, you know, in place. For some cities, you're talking millions and millions of dollars, which could kill their budget totally.
Well, there's no way I could have $40 million set aside tomorrow for the future obligations of our pension plan. I think that, as I understood the bill, it was more to require cities to make some sort of payment towards that unfunded liability, in addition to their annual contribution to these plans. Now, some cities can afford to do that, but it also means that that's going to be critical decision-making and prioritizing of needs in those communities, because if you have to add additional dollars and we're not getting any additional tax revenue, then that's a hard decision going forward.
Not only are you making a decision about that for, let's say, this year, but you're saying in 4 years or whatever, that amount, what, you know, 100% increase in the like.
Well, it can be. You know, there's an assumed rate of return that the actuary factors into what, you know, all that money that we get from the employees and what the city puts in is invested. And there's a certain rate of return that they assume that you're going to earn. In years past, that was 8%. Well, I don't know about you, but I haven't seen 8% in a long time.
Yeah.
And if you're not earning that, then you're in the hole. And that's what's helped kind of exacerbate that unfunded liability. So if you lower your assumed rate of return, you think, well, that's a good thing. But what happens is it increases your contribution because you expect to earn less and you have to make it up. I'm pleased to say that the city has decreased our assumed rate of return from 8%, and I think it's either 7.5 or 7 3/4. You say, well, does that really make a difference? Yeah, 0.5% makes a huge difference when you're talking about millions and millions of dollars being invested. What we also are hopeful of is that we'll see some gain in the stock market over time, so that will help level out. I think over the last 20 years of the plan, the assumed rate of return wasn't quite 8%, but it was close. So we have to remember that this is a long-term investment. It's not something I'm going to cash out tomorrow. So I think 8% is too high, certainly. I don't know what the magic number is. I think it's less than 7, but that's something that we're still working on.
Well, turning back to something more positive. Excuse me. You were saying that there is the walk with the manager that's coming up this Saturday, and you will have one of your department heads there. You'll be looking at the downtown activities. And you have the new park will be opening on the beach side, and that's around the 23rd
of February.
Of
yes.
February. Is there a time frame for that? A time?
I think it's 10:30 in the morning.
Okay, but they can kind of stay tuned for
we'll have
for
lots
that
of
information.
announcements, yes.
Absolutely. And in terms of development that's going on in the city, do you have investors that are actually coming to the city and saying, you know, I want to put my business here, or I want to expand my business and the like?
Yeah, we do have some of those, and some of those I can't talk about.
Okay.
Because it's confidential at this point. But I think you can see some real evidence if you just drive Granada. You'll see the Madison Glen, which is a apartment unit that has just been developed. There's a brand new bank going on the corner of Old Kings and Granada. A new Chase Bank was just, I think the one that's going on the corner of Old Kings and Granada is Reunion Bank. There's a brand new Chase Bank that was just built a couple of months ago on Nova Road across from the trails. So we have lots of that development going on, so we're really excited about that.
And do you get the sense, as I know I do, that things are really starting to pick up, that things are really starting to turn around, that consumers are feeling a little more confident about spending, investors are feeling more confident about investing in the various areas, and hopefully if that continues, then some of the problems, as with the pension, as with some other things that we're hoping will also turn around, that as we go forward in 2013, that hopefully we will be on the upkick, as they say, up whatever.
Well, I hope so as well. I think we have seen certainly that there's been some interest in that moving forward. You know, we have the Ormond Crossing project on US 1 that we're hopeful to jumpstart that in the near future. That's been a long time coming for us. You know, we're really appreciative of Tomoka Holdings bringing that project forward. What we need to do is to get some roads into there so people can see that development and see the potential there. So we're really excited about that in the years to come.
Final closing comments that you'd like to share with your Ormond Beach listeners and other people who might think of Ormond Beach as being kind of a, you know, not just upscale, but kind of a sleepy little town, you know, where not a lot happens or whatever. What would you say to someone who is even looking for a place to live and they're possibly thinking about Ormond Beach? What would you say as a closing comment to those people?
You know, I think Ormond Beach is home, and when you come to Ormond Beach, I call us the crown jewel of Volusia County. We really are a special place. Everybody is welcome. Everybody is friendly. All the women are good looking. You know, so it's really a wonderful place to be, and I think we have wonderful schools. We have wonderful employment opportunities. We have wonderful housing and recreational activities. I couldn't find a better place to feel welcome, and we welcome everyone.
Well, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Okay, you've been listening to Truth with Gwen Azama-Edwards. My guest, of course, Joyce Shanahan, who is the city manager for the city of Ormond Beach. And as you've heard, Ormond Beach is the place to be, it's the place to move to, it's the place to remain, and it's the place to continue to work with government to make it an even better place to live, work, and play. Hey, this has been a good hour. It really has been. So we want to remind all of you, remember to join us every Thursday starting at 6:15 or whenever. Again, I built the big guy out of the chair as we discuss issues to inform and empower you, our listeners. Be sure to go to the website, www.gwen-truth.com. Until next time, be informed, be empowered, stand tall for that which is right and truthful. Like myself, Gwen Azama-Edwards with Truth, Joyce Shanahan, the city manager, city of Ormond Beach, and all of you, we're still standing. You be blessed and have a great week.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
With your host, Gwen Azama-Edwards, exclusively every Thursday night on WELE 1380 Radio, Ormond.